Hey, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Writer's Bookshelf. So this week we're going to do something a little different than what we've been doing. In the past we've been focusing on craft books, especially from like the major writing publishers like Writer's Digest and 10 Speed Press and so on. Maybe a few self-published books here and there that are, I think, popular in the indie space. But what we haven't done yet is we haven't really gone completely off-brand into something that's practical but maybe not necessarily immediately thought of anymore, especially in the age of Google. And what that is the nature of incorporating research into our descriptions of things. And so what I want to talk about today is this book that I actually found by accident. It's called The 99 Invisible City. It's a really nice book. You can see I'm still reading it. I got my little cat book cover here. And this is precisely where I am as of this recording, is in the section on roadways. You'll see it's really nicely illustrated. It's you have, like, once you go into the articles, they look like this. It's really nicely designed. It's and I wasn't bought it, honestly. It was 50% off of Barnes & Noble. I thought it was an interesting premise. It's based off of a blog by Roman Mars is the author here. But the subtitle is The Field Guide to the Hidden World of Everyday Design. But I believe the 99 Invisible City is actually the name of the blog, if I'm not mistaken. And what they do, let me just make sure here. Sorry, it's podcast host. Roman Mars is a podcast host, and Kurt Kohlstedt is the co-author. And so what they do is they actually dig into like these urban areas, but they dig into like the history of why certain things exist. Like I just read recently about the telephone pole and how the telephone pole not only came to be, but why we still rely on them. And there's little backstories on the conflict that the original creator of the telephone pole, Samuel Morse, I believe it is. First of all, why he created the communication lines to begin with. It's based on a tragedy. His wife died, and by the time he got the message, she had already passed. By the time he got the message that she was sick, she had already died, and he wanted a faster way to get information, and so he went into this cycle of trying to figure out how to minimize the communication time, and eventually it created our modern telephone line and all that. But just the history of how he managed to get that done. It's a short read, but it's interesting. But this entire book is based on these little short essays on historical reasons for why we have the things we do. And it's about the little things that we typically don't notice anymore, like with manhole covers, and how why is it every manhole cover has all these grooves in it? Like, why do they have the little bumps and things? And why is it some manhole covers have interesting pictures or patterns on them? Why is it that you can go to Japan and see a manhole cover with one of their little temples on the front? I forget what they're called. It's the type of house. But like, why is it that these things have these cultural histories? Why is it when you go to Paris, you see locks on the bridge? It's really interesting, the things that we learn about the little things that we typically ignore. And so the point of bringing this up is two reasons. It can potentially bring in little known facts about city life into your stories that maybe you didn't think about, maybe your reader doesn't think about. Things like the decorative buildings that hide the utility poles. Did you know that some cell towers are disguised to look like trees, and why it is that some trees are abnormally high or tall compared to the ones around them? Because again, they're trying to aesthetically please people who have to look at it. There's buildings, they call them faux buildings. They literally have their buildings designed to house ugly infrastructure, like ugly pumps, water pumps, for example. Like, they look really nice on the outside. They look like a millionaire would live there, but as soon as you walk through the door, it's just a shell. It's just empty, with nothing but a turbine or whatever it is that they're trying to hide from people who wander through the city. And these are the things that you're going to learn about in this book. And the point I'm bringing this up is not that you have to have this book in particular, although I do recommend it. I think I'm having fun. The whole reason why I'm only this far in is because I'm taking my time with it. I'm actually enjoying it. It's not like I'm trying to research, in a hurry to get a video out or anything like that. Like, I actually want to legitimately enjoy this book, and every new thing that I learn. Like, I just a couple weeks ago I read about the Can Opener Bridge, and if you're a resident of Durham or Raleigh, North Carolina, you know exactly which bridge I'm talking about. I've never been there, so I've never seen it, and so I didn't know about this bridge until I read about it in the book. But sure enough, as soon as I heard about it, as soon as I read about it, I had to go watch the YouTube videos. And it's cringeworthy, but it's great entertainment as long as you're not the driver of those poor trucks that encounter the Can Opener Bridge. But the little things like that, it's just interesting to learn about. And so this brings me to the real point of this week's discussion. It's not even about the book. It's about the idea of researching and the fact that, yes, we have everything online. It's pretty easy access now. But there's still something valuable about a library or about hardcover books that have they stand the test of time as being a viable resource. And most writers should already know this, but I think because we're coming into a time where Google, it's been around for about 20 years now. I'm guessing, I don't know what the actual number is, but it's been around long enough that it's becoming a source of great dependency on a lot of researchers, especially casual researchers, those who don't want to do the deep dive that other more hardcore researchers will want. And so it's really easy to miss important things. And the whole reason why books like this exist, in my opinion, isn't just to inform readers, but it's to give you a source of exploration. It's an opportunity for you to find out what you don't know, to find out something that's interesting about the world you live in that maybe you never would have found otherwise unless you opened a book. So that's really all I'm saying with this week and this book in particular. It is about settings. It's about items in the world. It's about things that are interesting. Again, some of the topics I haven't even gotten to yet include on building codes, whatever that is, premeditated deconstruction. And I had to honestly read about what that means. I really couldn't tell you because I haven't read it yet. But it looks to me like they are... looks like they're... Looks like in order to prevent explosives from damaging things, they're taking it down bit by bit. Actually, it's kind of similar to the bridge I was just talking about, and how they fixed it. There's a lot of things in here that you can learn from based on city life or city history or things that you're just good trivia even. But the rabbit holes that it can lead to, if I wanted to learn more about the Can Opener Bridge, which I actually wanted to do, that would give me a jumping off point to start watching the YouTube videos, to learn more about the guy's channel who lives on the corner that watches all the carnage that when a truck too tall meets the Can Opener Bridge. It gives you the history of why it was built that way. It gives you the history of what how the city tried to rectify the problem that it created, and specifically why it can't fix it. That's the other interesting thing about it, because the simple item is that when you have a bridge that's decapitating trucks, you raise the bridge. But what if you can't? What if it causes a different kind of problem? So these are also interesting things that show up in the book. But there's a lot that I think by going down the rabbit hole of research, you're going to help yourself out by learning interesting things about places, about people, about cultures, ideologies, ideas, even exploratory, futuristic things. I don't know how many people realize, if you ever watch the DVD or maybe the Blu-ray of 24, like one of the earlier seasons, they do talk about the process of how they came up with ideas for the show, and more importantly, how they came up with gadgets. And one of the things I learned by watching the behind the scenes is that the GPS was actually on 24 before it was ever a real life thing that you and I can use. And so it begs the question, did 24 influence, our government to even allow GPS to be a thing? And it sure looks like the way, because before we dismiss that as a ridiculous claim, Star Trek is exactly the reason why we have half the things we have now, like communicator, the cell phone, the smartphone. It's like a form of tricorder. So fiction can also inform the future, but we can get our ideas from from what we learned through research. If you, again, going on the same idea of using movies as a reference, Minority Report, you learn through its special features that Steven Spielberg, prior to making the movie, actually talked to city planners and futurists about what Washington D.C. would look like in the year 2050, based on real, real city ordinances, based on real things that would and wouldn't happen. So it wasn't just a fantastical idea. That's why, like, the city in particular has a focus on the infrastructure in the downtown area, but the National Mall is still very much what it is today, is because you can't mess with that, according to the documentary. So being able to incorporate the ideas that city planners, futurists, or even devices that are current now, that you can imagine what the evolution of that current might be, like the Roomba robot, for example. Right now, Roomba goes and vacuums your carpet, but what if one day Roomba goes one step further and washes your floor? Like, he doesn't just vacuum the carpet, but he also has a component where he squirts the Lysol or whatever it is on your floor and mops it for you. Now, maybe that already exists. I don't know, but I haven't seen it yet. But I'm sure it's coming, because that's like the natural next step, and you can use that based off of the research of what's coming, or what's potentially in the queue, and also using your imagination to imagine where, based on history. Historically, we've already figured out how to clean our kitchen floors with regular mops. We've also figured out how to clean our carpets with vacuums. Realistically, if we have a robot vacuum, one of these days we'll probably have a robot mop too. And then the most logical solution would be to combine them into one super cleaning robot. And then that's when the robot rights come into play. And then we have iRobot. But anyway, that's the future. But yeah, don't dismiss the idea of having textbooks, or going to Barnes & Noble and researching the business section. I love the psychology section. That's where all of Malcolm Gladwell's books are. The art sections, wherever you find an interest. Even go to the bargain bin section. There's a lot of good stuff in there. But then go to the library too. Go see what you didn't even realize existed, and maybe that might trigger something. Maybe you can even use it as a way to bring back a style or a resurgence. The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell talks about how this really ugly shoe became popular because these influencers wore it in an ironic time, but it was enough for it to catch fire. And this is a thing that the creator of that shoe has been trying to market for years and never had success. And because certain people who had influence suddenly brought it into the limelight, the thing took off. And the people who made the shoe, they I think it was the clog, I believe, but yeah, it just took fire. And so even with something like that, you might take something from history and make it vogue again, just by by nature of having a good story that references it. I don't know. That's up to you to decide what you're going to include and write. This also brings back the question about research and how much research should you do. You should do as much research as it takes to have an idea. What the common recommendation is: don't use all your research. Use what you need that's relevant to your story, but then leave the rest behind. But the idea is, the more research you have, the more authentic you can make your work, if depending on how much you include. So if I wanted to write a story about a spy running from a villain, and he needs to hide in this big ornate building, he might have a really great idea until he opens the door and finds a water pump inside and realizes he has nowhere to go but into the tunnels beneath, which might be good for him. It's something the story will have to play out, but it might also be too really, really bad, because there's nowhere really to hide, because that big fancy building is just a shell. So who knows? But anyway, that's again 99 Invisible City, and more importantly, the concept of research. And I do hope that you all, there's the backside, it's kind of cool too. I love this book. It's a great book. If you're watching this and you're the guys behind the 99 Invisible City podcast, this stuff's awesome. I love it. But if you're trying to up your game, don't leave out the research. Don't leave out the rabbit hole. And don't necessarily rely on Google. I mean, Google is going to have a lot of stuff for you, but it's very easy to get distracted into like the nothing of the internet. At some point, you're going to end up on a cat video. Go to the library, or even Barnes and Noble, and just look for a reference book. One of the books I still want to read, I still haven't gotten to yet, but I want to. It's a book from the 70s called The Culture of Narcissism, and I wanted to read it because I want to learn more about that sociological behavior as a way to understand, feel my characters better, because I like, one of my characters I think is a narcissist, so I want to know why he thinks the way he does, and having that research, in the back of my mind would certainly help me understand why he makes the decisions he does. But if it's based on nature versus nurture, which is the idea of, is it biology or is it influence? How do I know that his narcissism isn't based on influence? So that's something I want to learn more about, if that's even something that they address. There's just so many avenues you can take in the research loop in order to find something that really works. But something as simple as knowing why certain graffiti types are allowed on a wall. I mean, there's a lot I think you can use to your advantage just by knowing little things like that. So anyway, that was the whole point of this video. It's not to necessarily promote 99 Invisible City, although I think you should totally check it out, because I think it's just really interesting stuff, and I think you'll get a kick out of it. But it's also a ploy to go check out your reference shelf at Barnes & Noble and go explore your library if you haven't already. If you're not of the generation where that's been commonly practiced, become the next generation to do that. Again, if you're in your retirement years, you probably already know how to do all this stuff. And I would ask you, to train those on, that still have, that still listen to you, to go back to the library and tell them why it's important. And then, as usual, don't forget to like, subscribe, do all things YouTubers tell you to do. Make sure you comment on this video, anything you want to share, any words of advice you want to share about research. I don't know that there's a good book about research out there. I certainly don't have one, as far as I know. And if I ever find one, I'll do a video on it. But if you have research tips that you want to share with the community, please leave a comment below. If you have a blog that you've written an entire article on, share it in the comments. Let us know you have it. But yeah, I just help each other out. And don't forget you can also support this channel by visiting my website and checking out my books. And if for any reason my website's not open yet, you can just look up my name on Amazon and find my books there. My recommendations: Computer Nerd, that's my thriller novel, or Gutter Child it's a shorter book. It's a coming of age mystery, adoption mystery, but it's one that I've yet to have a bad review on. So Computer Nerd's got one bad review for reasons I don't fully understand, to be honest. But maybe you can tell me why. I don't know. But anyway, but that's how you can support the channel if you want to help me out a little and bring you more content like this, or just to say thanks for giving me content like this. Because again, every little purchase gives you a good read, and it drops a couple bucks in my little container. And don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter. It's a good way you can find out more of what I'm doing. But again, if you don't like my work, then that's cool too. But if you do like my work, please support it, because it helps. So anyway, that's it for today. Again, I don't know if I'm going to do the map making videos this coming week, or if I'm going to do 2 more books, because I'm trying to break these into logical chunks. I think it's probably going to be next 2 weeks will probably be the software, only because it ties into the settings and ties into what we're learning. One reason why I might not do that is because the other books I'm going to be doing that follow this have a little bit of that setting in there, so it might be better just to put it all at once. I don't know, but there will be something next week. If not the map making programs, then we'll do the next book, and if not the book, we'll do the next map making programs. But either way, we'll have something, and it should be good, and it should be helpful to you. And I hope you'll consider what I'm showing. So anyway, that's all for today. So we'll see you next time. Thanks again, and have a good day. Bye.